really amazing to hear Suzanne mention the co-created dance, because it kind of links really kind of clearly to what I'm going to talk about now. So that was really fantastic to hear her use those words. My presentation is about dancing a co-created dance within the framework of the Sherborne Developmental Movement approach. And what I'm hoping to do is share with you my experience of working with profoundly disabled children who, through this approach, are able to dance their own dance, which is a dance of joy, exploration, possibility, and learning. As I'm sure many of you know, the Sherborne Developmental Movement approach was pioneered by Veronica Sherborne, who was born in 1922 and died in 1990. But for those of you who don't, the activities she describes in her book, Developmental Movement for Children, are based in observing, understanding and nurturing the individual movement patterns and unique movement qualities of each participant. Put simply by Sherborne, it's concerned with the development of children, and this work happens largely through a duet, and this is the co-created dance. The Sherborne approach focuses primarily on the development of the relationships between the dancer and their awareness of their own body, their awareness of their dance partner, who later I'm going to talk about more, but can also be their dance landscape, and awareness of others dancing within the space. Often, in the case of individuals with profound and multiple learning conditions and severe learning difficulties, an awareness of the self can be absent, making modes of communication often greatly challenging and limited. Hence, for many profoundly disabled children, perceptions of sensation, connection with the self, and physical communication with someone else, facilitated through a movement approach, is seen by many special schools as a valuable part of their curricula. Sherborne states that when children are facilitated in awareness of what their bodies can do and the possibilities that this movement can present, children can begin to form relationships with others in the world. And this is how we find it within the context of a developmental curriculum. Sherborne's body of work was and remains strongly underpinned by her experiences of working with Laban and Lisa Ullman at the Art of Movement studio in Manchester. But she was not specifically from a movement or a dance background, rather from gymnastics, physiotherapy and PE. Her body of work is also underpinned by her observations of the encounters of natural play between a caregiver and a child. So for a really simple example, think of the action of row, row, row your boat, or simple rocking action, sitting together front to back or back to back. These two influences are linked for her through Laban movement analysis, a theory which Sherborne cites as highly significant in the development of her approach. In her own assessment of her work with Laban, Sherborne says that he aimed to help people to understand and experience the widest range of movement possible. Sherborne cites the following elements of movement analysis as being most significant in her work. Action in relation to body parts involved in the activity radiating from the trunk. Choroitics, or concerned with space, particularly for Sherborne in relation to spatial direction and proximity. And eukinetics, sometimes known as dynamics, but not exactly. This is primarily concerned with the quality of movement, but movements such as energy, flow, spatial pathways and time, otherwise known as motion factors. Sherborne recognised that Laban movement analysis could be a tool for observing human movement, and through this, the practitioner develops an understanding as to which of the Sherborne movement experiences are best to develop or encourage each individual dancer. For me, drawing these strands together reveals the threads of Sherborne's thinking. Notions of understanding and experience coming together to frame and facilitate a unique movement encounter by way of a co-created dance. Through this dance, we are offered an inclusive, democratic, but most importantly, a way into dance making for children with the most profound disabilities. This frame, of course, is shared with much current somatic and improvisational dance and movement performance practice. And I'm going to just click my that's fine. Well, that's my alarm quote, so I'm going to click on from that one. Moreover, in her book, Developmental Movement for Children, Sherborne describes the activities she brings together as a set of experiences rather than exercises. Because, she writes, they combine both physical and psychological learning experiences. She guides us away, I feel, from delivering a set class or the following of a specific set of exercises. In fact, as I understand it, Sherborne was very reticent to actually write a book and had to be persuaded to do so, as she was concerned that practitioners or teachers might begin to regard her work as too fixed or set. Her notion of the experience further draws out the thread of triggering a physical and inner understanding, interacting on both an individual level, but also one that is shared as the dance is co-created. The reference to her approach being a learning experience is another fundamental to the practice, because it's neither just about the dance or the learning. For her, they feed each other. This is my class at Castlewood. I've been working alongside two dance practitioners, Alexis Haynes and Sarah Bolter, who was on the picture, the staff and children at Castlewood Broad Spectrum Special School in Coventry for about 4 years now. During this time, we have developed and still deliver a programme of creative dance and Sherborne Developmental Movement across the school. The school is founded within a developmental approach to special school curriculum design, an approach that's now adopted by many special schools across the UK. And this approach is about what that approach does in terms of the developmental approach is that Sherborne Developmental Movement doesn't become an add-on. It's actually a thread throughout the curriculum. It's not a special activity or an entitlement or something special, but it is an entitlement for the children, and it runs through the school. Work on shaping and implementing the developmental curriculum for children with profound and multiple learning conditions has been led, amongst others, by Dr. Penny Lacey, who was a senior lecturer in education at the University of Birmingham. She was widely published in the field of education relating to children with PMLC. In her 2011 paper, A Profound Challenge, Dr. Lacey presents the context and framework of the developmental curriculum, stating, "The content of the developmental curriculum is broken down into 4 areas: cognition, communication, physical and self-care, and independence. Each of the 4 curriculum areas have a list of the opportunities children need in order to learn." At Castlewood, Dr. Lacey, along with the senior management team, developed and implemented the developmental curriculum approach. Acknowledged not to be a new concept, this curriculum brings together approaches from between the 1970s and 1990s. And as Dr. Lacey comments, it seems to be a natural progression to bring these elements together, to take a developmental perspective on basic learning and life skills, embedded in interesting contexts which are influenced by relevant school subjects. So it follows for me that the arts and physical education are included, and they are. And Dr. Lacey states that these specific subjects provide a context and a thematic approach for children with complex needs to learn. I met Penny early on my journey with Castlewood School in her capacity as curriculum advisor, and it was not long before we began to discuss implementing Sherborne Developmental Movement within the school. Some of the teachers and the teaching assistants had led Sherborne classes, but Penny was really excited to think that dance practitioners could really begin to develop the work from a perspective of movement and dance. I had vaguely heard of Sherborne through my Laban training, but had not experienced being in a class, let alone leading one. However, in the school, I was given the confidence to be creative, to take risks, and to be encouraged to learn and understand this practice. Penny always came into sessions on a Thursday, and I would look up from working with a child, and there she was, dancing with a child or observing. And I greatly valued the opportunities to talk about and share what I had noticed or experienced with a particular dancer in my co-created dance. Thank you. During the last 4 years, I've observed and experienced how the methodology and framework of the Sherborne Developmental Movement approach enables children with the most complex physical needs to dance their dance. At Castlewood, we work with a hand-under-hand approach rather than hand-over-hand. It's a philosophy of supporting and giving space rather than prompting. It's my observation that the Sherborne approach gives us the ability to work in this way because it encourages and most importantly values the unique movement patterns of each individual dancer. Also because it requires the presence of another bodily framework within which the dance can evolve and grow. This human scaffold aims to facilitate a dance that can be created with, and sometimes mostly without, equipment often used to support, contain or transfer children, often very necessary in their everyday lives. Exchanging this equipment for human support or landscape is about, for me, trying to locate and extend possibilities for movement exploration and facilitate different perspectives for both dancers. In seeing and feeling space, directions, the floor, the ceiling, using actions and body parts, sensing and working with another person. I work with a practice in a number of ways, and these are often not exclusive and can be interchangeable weekly and can also change within a session. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about my experience as being a practitioner in the class. Firstly, as a co-creating dancer with a dance partner. This is an immersive, noticing experience of the co-created dance. In other words, not leading a session. As a session leader, but with no partner, gives me the opportunity to observe dances being created and offer support if appropriate or needed. This is the most common one, which is leading and working with a co-creating dancer, because quite often in school, if we want it to happen, it's all hands to help, because we sometimes don't have enough people, and it's a one-to-one as much as we can make it a one-to-one experience. But I think this enables a greater depth of exploration and questioning of the practice. But it's also challenging to manage a class and a dance partner and notice and co-create a dance all at the same time. I can also be simply an observer, writing up notes in my field diary. But on this one, you can guarantee it's not long before I'm finding a way to join in. Sessions at Castlewood happen weekly and take a thematic approach, as I already referenced about the developmental curriculum, linking into topics across the school. But at the same time, practice remains firmly rooted within the established experiences as set down by Sherborne. Themes work well. As Dr. Lacey identifies, this offers another way of accessing and connecting with specific topics and opportunities that PMLC children need to learn. Throughout all of the sessions at Castlewood, and more recently at another Coventry school, Sherborne Fields, there is committed support from teaching staff and assistants who are all regarded in the sessions as a dancer. I would go so far as to say that the success of sessions hugely relies on them. In one instance at Castlewood, we've had a parent to join us, and this is something I would like to see developing further. I've been keeping a field diary of my work now for about 2 years, and in sharing this short extract with you, I hope it might give a further insight into my experiences and observations within a session. The smaller room is working really well for our session. It's holding us more effectively than the hall, warmer and cosier. Lots of positive movement and dancing today. Dee is as joyful as ever being out of his chair, good eye contact, experimenting with stretching of limbs, noticing hands and feet, lots of smiles. V is my dance partner and is smiling today, good eye contact and happy with close interaction. I'm certain she's beginning to recognise me. A lovely moment of rocking, holding hands opposite one another. She decides to hold my hand and we experiment with rhythm and going between fast and slow. H and partner. H let herself fall into her partner's arms, both lying down, H lying on her partner. I can see this is the bodily landscape in action. Partner made a cradle with one arm. H used initiation from her hip to follow a sequential pattern with the rest of the body, all following through. She allowed this to continue for a while, enjoying the sensation of her body falling through space for a split second. It's that moment of suspension. Lots of things worked today, fell into place. Teacher had no dancer, so moved around the room, observing dances and supporting. There was a real sense of movement creation in the class today, all staff very supportive, all dancing together. To conclude, I reflect that the Sherborne approach provides a framework in which a unique body can create a unique dance, moments owned and moments shared with a dance partner. It finds a possibility for children with profound needs through this co-created dance to locate, create and dance their own dance. I wanted to finish with my to-do list and might link into questions. Continue to develop an assessment methodology to measure impact and effectiveness of the work within the developmental curricular context. Think and write more about how the value of the dance created by the children links with, or could link with, performance, choreography and disability dance aesthetics. And learn more about how the intensive interaction methods and approach can link further or enhance the work. And that's my presentation. Sorry, I forgot to flick through, so I'll just give you a few.
We've got a couple minutes for questions if anybody has any questions. I'll start with.
I do one-to-one work with an adult with profound learning.
Yeah.
And just listening to that and seeing the images, I can imagine he loves to dance.
Yeah.
And I can imagine it working really well with him.
Yeah.
I'm quite interested in learning more about the method, actually.
Yeah, absolutely.
What would you recommend as a sort of starting?
I have to say, as I already said, when I first started at the school, I knew a little about it, but not very much. I think what we do have in our classes, we have lots of visitors. People from Castlewood School is a teaching school, so they are very welcoming to kind of people coming in and watching. And I think probably what I would say first is have a look at a session, come and experience it. I deliberately didn't show any video today, and I was kind of fighting with myself as to, whether I would, but I think this is about an experience, and I think it's important to experience it, the work. So what I'd say first is please come and see what we do if you're in the area, or if you're not.
I'm sure there would be one.
I could absolutely. I can link you up with some people. If I have put my email address there, so if you want to get in contact, I can. But I think I would say, interestingly, the work wasn't created. Sherborne's work wasn't particularly created for children with disabilities. It was kind of formed from observations of natural play, and it applies to early years contexts. It can apply with adults. In Eastern Europe, there's a lot of work going on with adults, and we do it in a class context. But in Sweden, Poland, Norway, there's a lot of specific one-to-one sessions happen with adults, so I can definitely point you in the direction. But I was going to say to you all, if anybody is interested, we do welcome visitors into the sessions, and it's really sort of open for people to come and see.
Yeah, I guess I have a couple of challenges.
Yeah.
You were asking about putting this approach to performance and co-creation. For me, as a disabled artist, I think about co-creation as disabled artist, maybe non-disabled artist.
Yeah.
So if it's a one-to-one with a practitioner and an individual disabled person, then I can't see that as being. I think I see that as therapy, and I don't see that as having components to be a performance piece.
Thank you for that, because it's a question, and that was why that's partly why I didn't show any video. Thank you.
So I compared that with the thing, and also I absolutely have to contest that. How do we know that they don't even know they are alive? Because I have friends with profound disabilities, because I hang out in disabled networks, and I've never met a person who I can assess as knowing whether they're alive or not. And there's another thing, awareness of self is absent. We all have an awareness of self. How we relate to the world is always kind of categorised by normative ideas. So it can be expanded out. If there was like a group of disabled people, disabled children, and practitioners, is that one-to-one thing that I have issue with on a practical side of things? Can it go out into performance? For me, it ended up performance, but it wasn't a one-to-one, and that one-to-one being so like polarised and so.
One of the things we have, we want to develop is working with a disabled dance practitioner in the context, and that. Yes, and that. There is a dance artist that has been working with us, who is a disabled dance artist, and is at the moment in the process of shadowing us and working with us, and we would like to be able to have her in the sessions and working, on the one-to-one. I mean, as I said, I think the thing about performance is that that was a question for me, and it's and at the moment it isn't about performance, and I think, but it was just more about kind of thinking to go back to your point about the awareness of self in the world. That was lots of conversations, and maybe it's slightly out of context here, but is about working with Penny Lacey, who was the lecturer, and you can find more about her work. And I think what it was more about was about awareness of the self and what the self can actually do. So for children kind of modes of communication and disabilities are so profound that so it was kind of, it comes from her thinking and conversations with her, but I'm happy to be challenged on it. Thank you.
Yeah, I think from my experience of working with PMLD in schools, that this idea of not knowing they're alive tends to come from the staff who have the children in school and don't see, they're never out of chairs, so they don't see there's aliveness. So it's like a projection. I haven't seen it so they can say that, but actually it is a bit ignorant, isn't it? But there's that thing of when there is an opportunity to interact in this movement way, then the aliveness of the child
comes up.
But
Exactly.
It is a perspective thing, just troubling. But there's also a Sherborne training going on. And there is a website for Sherborne.
There is, that's right.
Trainings are taking place.
Yes, they are. And I'll put everybody in touch with that. Absolutely. Thank you.
But sorry, the question was: is there a non-genetic developmental aspect to the Sherborne work? Is it looking at human development?
Yes, it is.
Such?
Yes.
So it goes through developmental stages.
It does. As the training goes on, yes, it does.
I'm interested because I'm a body-mind centering teacher and practitioner, and that's really foundational to what we do. But I'm just interested in the crossovers with other disciplines.
Yes, it does. It does develop into that.
Any other questions? Comments? Thank you very much.